The 1980s weren't just blockbusters and Spielberg classics, they were also the decade where Dennis Hopper filmed an entire movie completely high out of his mind, where Francis Ford Coppola made a gangster musical that nearly bankrupted him, and where James Woods played a bounty hunter so unhinged he tried to deprogram a kid by spitting on his own father. These are the forgotten 80s movies that deserve way more recognition. Let's start with White Star. Now, if you want to see Dennis Hopper truly unleashed, this is the one to hunt down. He's playing this washed-up rock promoter Ken Barlow just grinding his way through the German punk scene. Always angry, always looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. The thing is, Hopper wasn't really acting for most of it. This was shot during the phase where he was just open about being high, using whatever he could just to get through the shoot. So what you get is pure Hopper blasted out of his mind in every other scene. Is it a great movie? Not really, but for Hopper fans it's a treat. He goes totally overboard, and it's hard to look away. Hopper himself apparently had no love for the film, just took the money and moved on, but there's something strangely watchable about seeing him go completely off the rails. Family Business flies under most people's radar, but it's a great late 80s crime comedy with a stacked cast. 3 generations of the McMullen family, Sean Connery as the old-school ex-con, Dustin Hoffman as his straight-laced son, and Matthew Broderick as the ambitious grandson who gets them all mixed up in a new heist. The movie is all about friction between the generations. Connery and Hoffman play off each other surprisingly well, even if the casting seems weird at first. Broderick's the wild card, pushing the story forward and stirring things up. It's not a flashy film, but there's a lot of charm in watching these actors bounce off each other. Over the years, Family Business has faded into obscurity, but it's a nice little reminder of how good even the minor films from this era could be. This is one of those movies that digs into cults. Not the cool kind, but the real, creepy ones. Michael O'Keefe plays Joshua, a college gymnast who's just living a normal life until he gets sucked into a youth cult run by Peter Fonda's character, Kirk Lander. It starts off innocent enough, new friends, new beliefs, but pretty soon it's full-on brainwashing territory. The real draw here is the cast. Joshua's parents, played by Brian Dennehy and Elizabeth Ashley, are desperate to get their son back, so they bring in James Woods. He plays Charles Pratt, this bounty hunter with a real edge, and the deprogramming scenes are something else. Woods doesn't hold back. At one point, he spits on a photo of the cult leader, even spits on the dad to try and break the spell. It's brutal, but it actually works within the story. Directed by Ted Kotcheff, the film never tips over into melodrama. Instead, it keeps things grounded with really strong performances across the board. Dennehy is great as the dad who's just trying to save his kid, and Woods, as always, brings that chaotic energy. If you're into lesser-known 80s movies with actual substance, this is one of the good ones. This one is Coppola's big swing at a musical gangster epic. The production was a mess. Coppola needed the job to pay off old debts. Robert Evans wanted to direct, and the budget just kept growing until it hit $58 million. They swapped out co-writers, had script drama, but somehow Coppola pulled it together. Set in the 1930s, the film centers on a Harlem nightclub where everybody crosses paths: mobsters, musicians, dancers. Richard Gere leads as Dixie Dwyer, trying to survive and maybe get ahead. Gregory Hines is incredible as Sandman, a dancer making his way into the spotlight, and Bob Hoskins and Fred Gwynne just steal every scene they're in as a couple of mobsters who have this weird buddy energy. The two of them improvise a bunch of their moments, and honestly, I'd watch a whole movie with just those two. The Cotton Club didn't do well when it came out, only made back about half its budget, but it's picked up a new life as this sort of hidden gem from Coppola's middle years. It's had multiple recuts and restorations over the years, and every time people find a little more to like. Target is a thriller that nobody seems to mention anymore, but it's a solid piece of 80s filmmaking. Arthur Penn directs, and Gene Hackman is front and center as Walter, a dad whose wife is kidnapped. Matt Dillon plays his son, Chris, and at first the two can't really stand each other. Chris just sees his dad as boring, checked out, basically a non-factor. But when the mom disappears, suddenly Walter comes alive and the father-son dynamic shifts. What's interesting here is the way Hackman plays Walter, a guy who's been drifting, maybe missed out on connecting with his kid, but when it counts, steps up and becomes the hero. Dillon brings the typical 80s angst, but it works. Together, they make for a surprisingly good duo, hunting down leads and pulling together as a family again. Penn keeps the story tight, focusing on plot twists and classic thriller energy. It's easily one of those forgotten Hackman performances that deserves another look. After Raging Bull, Robert De Niro could have done anything, but instead, he chose to go small in True Confessions. He plays a priest, and Robert Duvall is his brother, a cop investigating the murder of a prostitute. It's a dark, low-key crime film with De Niro and Duvall on opposite sides of a case that's messier than it first looks. What makes the movie work is how restrained De Niro is. After the fireworks of Jake LaMotta, he pulls way back here, showing how subtlety can be just as powerful. Duvall is fantastic, carrying the detective role with a tired sort of determination, and Charles Durning comes in with his usual larger-than-life energy. There's no emotional manipulation, no easy answers, just really strong acting, and a story that trusts you to pay attention. Now for something really odd, The Caller. Malcolm McDowell stars in what he himself described as a mind game, almost like a play but dialed up with 80s tension. McDowell, coming off a wild run in the 70s, finds himself in full B-movie territory here but still totally locked in. It starts off simple. McDowell shows up at a woman's house claiming he needs to use her phone. That's it. But then things get weird, and what follows is this tight, claustrophobic back and forth, two characters trying to figure each other out. There's a psychological struggle, a little seduction, a little menace, and it all leads up to an ending that just blindsides you. Fair warning, the ending might actually annoy some people, but the ride getting there is a lot of fun. Tony Scott's The Hunger is what happens when you take a vampire story, push the style all the way up, and let three absolute icons run wild. Catherine Deneuve is Miriam, a vampire who's been alive for centuries, always looking for a new companion. David Bowie plays John, her latest lover, immortal until suddenly he isn't. As he starts to age, their quiet existence starts falling apart. It's a film full of mood, slick visuals, heavy music, a little over the top at times. The violence is graphic, the direction's got that old-school music video vibe, and it definitely isn't for everyone. Bowie himself thought it was maybe too much, but the performances make it work. Bowie's great as the doomed, desperate John. Susan Sarandon gets pulled into Miriam's world as the next in line, but it's Catherine Deneuve who holds the whole thing together. The Hunger didn't get much love on release. Critics called it empty and too flashy, but it's found its own cult audience over the years. If you want a horror movie with actual style, this is it. Gene Hackman did a lot of anti-heroes and tough guys in the 70s, but in Twice in a Lifetime, he shifts gears. He plays Harry, a factory worker turning 50, dealing with the kind of restlessness that just sneaks up on you. On his birthday, he meets a barmaid, Anne Margaret, and suddenly he's tempted by the idea of a new start. It's not a midlife crisis movie in the cheesy way, there's real weight to it. As Harry's marriage falls apart, Hackman's performance makes you feel the sadness and confusion of someone realizing what they're losing. There are beautiful, understated scenes with Ellen Burstyn, his wife, and the family dynamics feel completely real. Hackman brings so much honesty to the part, it's impossible not to get pulled in. He got a Golden Globe nod for it and honestly, probably deserved more. This one's always been overlooked in his career, but it's got a real power to it. Here you've got James Woods in full beast mode based on a James Ellroy novel chasing down a killer in LA. This isn't your typical 80s action flick, no wisecracks, no buddy cop tropes. Woods plays Detective Lloyd Hopkins, obsessed with solving the case, not really caring who gets hurt along the way. His family life is a mess, work is all-consuming, and he's absolutely single-minded in going after the killer. The movie goes darker than most cop thrillers of the era, and Woods brings his usual intensity. Instead of playing the lovable rogue, he's just relentless. Charles Durning is a great foil as his partner, but at its heart, this is all about Woods making you uncomfortable and fascinated at the same time. Cop didn't get the attention it deserved when it came out, but it's absolutely worth tracking down for fans of grimy, character-driven crime stories.